how's it going? I'm Jessica, or Jess as most people call me, and I'm here to talk to you about how to quickly make a website of a data visualization. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a senior developer advocate at Twitter, and you could tweet at me at Jessica Garson. And so you might be wondering, like, what is developer advocate? Every time I give a talk, someone always asks me. So that means that I spend a lot of time building with our Twitter API and also getting to know people who are also building with the Twitter API, spending time at conferences such as this one, learning about what you're working on and building and how we can make the Twitter API better. And a lot of like recent changes that we've made to the API came directly from conversations I've had at events such as this one. That's a little bit about me. So let's go through the agenda of what this talk will be about today. We're going to talk about some options for data visualization in Python to kick things off, talk a little bit about Dash, why I built this, what problem that I was solving for, do a little bit of an overview of the solution, talk a little bit about how to get started with the Twitter API, give us a little bit of a demo, which is where we're going to be spending most of the time. And that's going to be a live coded portion, and then talk a little bit about deployment because this is a Python web conference, and have some time for Q&A. So there are lots of options for data visualization in Python. There's Plotly, which Dash is built on top of. There's Matplotlib, there's Seaborn, Plot9, ggplot, which is like the same as ggplot in R, Bockup, Hygal. There's so many different options, and there's lots of different ways to do it. Also, the other day I was doing some like R plotting inside of Python too. There's so many different options these days for plotting. And so if you have any favorite data visualizations tools, please let me know in the chat. I'm always looking for new things to try. So be sure to let me know what your favorite one is in the chat. But there are a lot of options. And so Dash is really great because it allows you to quickly set up a Flask app that allows you to create a web framework for data visualizations using Python, R, Julia, or .NET. Today, obviously, since this is the Python web conference, I'm going to be showing a demo using Dash with Python. So why Dash? Why even use it? I used Dash for this example because I wanted to quickly prototype a solution, what a solution would look like for something that I was working on. We recently, or a little while back, we released some new endpoints around tweet counts. And I was like, wow, like I really want to be able to like quickly put that on a graph and like share it as a web page. And like, I had this fun idea and I was like, you know what, like I want to know how often I've been tweeting. And so typically my talks are typically like things I've been working on for like a really long time. And then I like build it into a talk and I'm like really proud of it. This is actually different than most talks I typically give because this was something I did really quickly. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really proud of that. Like I was able to make a website out of a data visualization really quickly. And like, there are lots of different times in my life where like that would have come in handy. So I figured I would turn that into a talk. So the problem that I was solving for is that I really just wanted to know like how often I was tweeting every week. And I just wanted to like see like, am I tweeting more like on Monday, like was I like tweeting all day on Tuesday and that's why like I didn't get the things done that I wanted to get done, or I just wanted to be able to like put that on a graph and see it. And so I was able to make this data visualization really quickly, and that's the problem that I was solving for. And there are lots of times where it's like, oh my God, it'd be really awesome to like basically plot things and turn into a website super quickly. And so that's one of the things that I was solving for. So let's kind of go through kind of what an overview of the solution that I built looks like. So the first part is kind of like setting up whenever you build anything. You want to make sure that you have the right framework to build on top of. So you want to make sure that you have all the right packages. You want to import all your packages. You want to set up your app.py file properly as well too. And then from there, the next kind of step in the way that I kind of look at it is that you want to like start building and connecting to the Twitter API. So you want to authenticate and connect to the Twitter API, and you'll be able to see all of this in the code when I show that as well. And then you're going to want to get recent tweets from the past 7 days using the recent tweet counts endpoint. And then you're going to want to put it inside of a data frame. So basically, just take your results, put it in a data frame, and then you'll put the tweets that match your query in there, and then you're ready to like customize your page, and then you get your page up and running. So I'll be showing that in code and like what that looks like, but I always like to kind of start with the overview just to kind of take a step back and be like, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to set up, then we're going to connect to the Twitter API, and we're going to create a data frame, and then we're going to customize what we want on our web page and make a site. It's pretty cool. And so to get started working with the Twitter API, t.co/signup. Again, that's t.co/signup. I work at Twitter, so we have t.co short links like bit.ly. You'll see them a couple of times throughout the presentation. So yeah, t.co/signup. And before you can use the Twitter API v2, you'll need to sign up for a developer account. And we made some changes to the process recently based on feedback that we've heard from y'all to make it a little bit easier. So t.co/signup to get started with a Twitter developer account. And also, once you have a Twitter developer account, you'll need to create a project inside the developer portal, and each project contains an app with which you can use to generate the credentials that you need to start working with the Twitter API. And you can learn more about that in our Getting Started section of our docs. And I'm actually going to go ahead and show you some of our docs here. So we have, this is actually what it looks like inside of my Twitter developer portal. And so I have a project called video, because I guess this is a video at the end of the day. And then from here, I have an app, Hello World Twitter Bot. This app was actually the first app I ever built with the Twitter API in 2014. And so I just use it still. And then from here, if I wanted to get my keys and tokens for my app, I would click on this keys and tokens to get that. So yeah, let's go back to the, so now we're ready for the demo portion. And this is where the majority of the talk will be today. So yeah, let's dive in and start getting started. Also, real quick, we do have documentation on the tweet counts endpoint that I'm going to be showcasing today. So this is what the API looks like, and it basically will return counts from the past 7 days that match a given query. And especially for this project, I thought that like 7 days was definitely enough. Like I didn't want to see like a whole like month by month graph. I didn't want to know too much. I just wanted to kind of see every week how often I was tweeting, and just wanted it to be super simple. So yeah, let's kind of show what that looks like. So let's actually first kind of from here, let's actually start with my Twitter handle. So this is Postman, which is our REST client. And I always like to kind of get started with Postman just so I can like see what the data looks like. So I really like just like using it because you can kind of like make a GET request to our api.twitter.com/2/tweets, all of that. And you can also make changes. You could change the granularity to like, let's say I wanted. And so from here we got lots of by every minute. If I wanted hour, I can change that to hour. It's just a kind of a fun way to kind of start prototyping really quickly. And I love working with Postman in this way to just kind of like get started making API requests super quickly. So from here, you can kind of see it by day. If I wanted to take a look at my team's Twitter handle, TwitterDev, which is what I was originally set to, I can actually do that. I can also make changes so that like it doesn't include retweets or anything like that. And I can, customize my request. I can customize what fields I get back more. There's lots of different options for like how to kind of start working. But for today, for the purposes of today, we're going to actually use my Twitter handle, which is Jessica Garson. And from here, you can actually kind of see all of the data. And so there's two objects. There's data and then there's meta. And so what we're going to be doing in the code is we're actually just going to be taking this data object and putting it into a pandas data frame to get started making a visualization. So yeah, that's a little bit about like what we're going to do. Also, one of the other things I love about working with Postman is if you press this code button, it actually will automatically generate code for you, which is like a really great way to get started, especially if you are new to connecting to APIs in general or anything like that. I love using that sometimes as a starting point, or also if you're really busy, it's a really great way to kind of get started quickly, just getting the code that you need and then adjusting it from there. So really love working with Postman. That's kind of like a great way to kind of like start prototyping with APIs. Cool. So now let's actually go into the terminal. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so that y'all could see this. And the first step that we're going to want to do is, if we haven't already installed the libraries that we need, we would install Dash if we haven't. And actually, I'm actually going to go down just so that y'all can see it, because I think I have something that says that I'm sharing my screen. So pip install Dash. And then also, if you haven't installed Dash Bootstrap components, you would do Dash Bootstrap components. And then we're also going to be using pandas. So if you haven't installed that, you'd want to install that here. You don't want to press enter, but I just wanted to kind of show you. And then requests as well. And those are kind of the main things that you'd want to pip install to get started. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about kind of like how to set up. The other thing that you're going to want is you're going to want to set an environment variable for your bearer token. I have one already set up, and that's kind of going to be like the main credential that we work with. So you can create an environment variable for bearer token. So it'd be export bearer token, and you'd want to set it equal to something like your bearer token. And instead of having it say your bearer token, you'd want to cut and paste it from your keys and tokens section of the developer portal. But again, this is a live event, so I will not be sharing my secrets, but that is one thing that you can do to get started. Cool. So once you have all of that set up, from there, you can actually create a new file for App.py, and you can start importing in everything you need. So I'm actually going to cut and paste this. So from here, we're going to import in Dash, and that is going to be kind of the main library that we're going to use. We're going to use Dash Bootstrap components as DBC, Dash core components as DCC, and you'll see where in my code I use these initials and aliases. And then there's Dash HTML components as HTML, and these help us kind of like get the website set up a little bit more, and it's really nice for some customizations and things like that too. And then there's Plotly Express has PX, and this is what we'll use for plotting. Pandas, which is what we'll create a data frame with before we start using Dash. OS is going to be the Python package for helping us get our environment variable. Again, so y'all don't have to see my passwords or anything like that. It kind of just helps keep things a little bit more secure. And then we'll be using the requests library of Python to make an HTML request. So from here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is start setting up our app. So we're going to do Dash. Oh, and also this is a live coded adventure. So I'll be mostly live coding. So if you see anything, please say something. I have instructed the moderator to interrupt me if I'm making any, I might have a typo or two or something like that. So just please let me know if you're like seeing anything. Yeah, I always want to hear from you. So from here, we have dash dot dash, and then we're going to want to put in our external style sheets. And we're going to want to set this as equal to dbc dot themes dot journal. And actually, let's do uppercase journal. Cool. And now we have that. And then from here, we can do, and I'm actually gonna make the screen just a little bit smaller for a second. And let me know if it's too small as well. So we could do server, and this is another, this is where we're gonna kind of just set up our server. So we're gonna say app.server here. And now we have kind of the two things that we need. I kind of like to think about these two lines of code as sort of just like what we need to kind of set up our app. So I'm going to put setup app. It's just a code comment. And now we can actually comment from here. Let's do Twitter API connection. So from here, let's create a variable for search URL. And from here, let's go in here. And then it's api.twitter.com/tweets/counts/recent. And so from here, I have that in here. And then we can actually define some query params. And this is kind of very similar to what we were doing in Postman, where I was like adjusting. I don't know if y'all remember, but I was kind of going in and adjusting and like changing the query and changing that. So from here, we're going to want to do the same thing. So we're going to set the query, and we're going to set that inside this dictionary. And where it's going to want to be from my Twitter handle again, Jessica Garson, and then the granularity. We're going to want to set as day. From here. And yeah, so now we have that ready to go. And then from here, now this is where we want to kind of just set a variable for our OS to kind of get our environmental variable. So we could do environ.get. And from here, this is where we kind of get in the bearer token. And that's what I've defined inside my terminal. And so from here, we have all of that saved. And now we can actually make a function, and we're going to call it bearer OAuth. I'm going to pass in R, and then from here, what we can do is we could start adding some headers to our request. And so the first one that we're going to want to do is our authorization header. We're going to want to set that as equal to an F string. And inside of that, we're going to want that to be bearer. Yeah, so we want it to be bearer. And then we're going to want to pass in our bearer token. And from here, I also use agent headers sometimes as well, just to kind of remind me of like who's using what, and like I use it kind of to like help remind me of like, oh, like what was I actually using this code for? So for this, I'm going to set this one as Python Web Conference, which is where we are today. Cool. So we have all of that. Actually, let's just make this one word. Awesome. So now we have our bearer token set up, and now we can actually get started connecting to the endpoint. And this is actually one of the things that I think of as like the real fun place. I think of this actually as like kind of like a secret handshake. Like if you're going to like a really cool club and you have to like go and like do a secret handshake, this is sort of like the point that I think about like what's happening in the code, and like think of it sort of as like you're going into a really cool club where you have to like authenticate to get in. And so from here, and actually let's just change this from tweet fields to query params, just make it a little bit easier. So from here, we could connect to the endpoint, and that's the name of the function. And then from here, we want to pass in the URL, and that URL is going to be that search URL that we defined earlier, and then the query params. So that's like the adjusting the granularity for day, and it could be like day, hour, minute, anything like that. And then from here, we actually can put in the response, and that's going to be request.request. We're going to make a get response. And then from there, we're going to pass in the URL. We're going to want to set the auth as the bearer OAuth. That's that function where we set the headers and everything like that. And then the params are going to be our tweet fields, but I'm going to actually change that to query params. Cool. And then from here, the response, we want to print out that status code. There is a 200 that you get like when you actually run the code for the first time as well, but I always like to have it twice. I don't know. I like to just know right away that like everything is working. And then also because this is the live coded demo, if things aren't working, I want to know why. So if it's not a 200, then I want to know what the error is so I can actually put that in there. And I want the response status code and the response text. So if something's wrong, I can quickly debug, which is always really helpful. And then from here, we have the response.json, and that kind of formats it into, takes the response and it will format it into a JSON payload. And that will look just like what we saw in Postman. So let's save that. And then from here, we can actually make a line JSON response. We could connect. We're going to do that connect to endpoint, and we're going to do search URL and query params. Cool. So we have that ready here. And so now let's do df, and let's do pd dot data frame. And this is where we're putting the data from our JSON object into a data frame. So JSON response. And from here, we want the data in here. And then we have df, and this is for the data frame that we just defined. We can actually put it in, and we can take out start, and then we can turn that into a date time. So PD to date time. I just kind of like working with the pandas date time a little bit better than just the one that like we saw in Postman in here. It's a little bit harder to work with. So I like working with the pandas date time just a little bit better, just to kind of parse that out and make it just a little bit easier to work with. And so from here, we're going to take start in here. Cool. So now we have that. And now we're ready to kind of put that into like final data frame, just kind of slice it up a little bit more. So from here, we have start and tweet count. And so from here, that should be ready to go. And then we have the figure. We're going to do px. This is where we're like plotting it on a line. Some people have asked, you know, can this be a bar in the past? And that works too, but let's just do a line graph for today. We're going to want to pass in the final data frame. The x-axis is going to equal start, and the y-axis is going to equal tweet count. Cool. And now we should have that ready. And so now we've kind of sent everything to a data frame. We have that. Now we can do kind of like the real fun stuff, which is gonna be to like customize our website, which is really fun. So the next kind of set of code is around that. And so from here, actually, I'm just gonna add in some tweak comments, some comments as well. So this is create a data frame. And from here, we have some other code in here. And what I can do is actually add some comments here. So we want to do customize website. And this is super fun. So we could set the background to be cool. There is just a little bit of an issue, but that happens sometimes. Awesome. Cool. So we have the colors here. So we have the background here. We're going to set that to be white. We're going to set the text to be kind of like a Twitter blue. And then from here, we're going to want to update the layout. So we have the background colors for the background. And then we have like the foreground colors as the text, which is pretty cool. And then from here, and you could always change that if you wanted to. If I wanted to add some additional colors, I could do that too, but just want to keep this really simple. And then from here, we kind of could set the layout. So we can put in the style with the background color, change the colors to the background color too. And then from here, we can have the label tweet by dates for the header. And then from here, we want that to be centered and we want that to be that Twitter blue color. And then from here, we have some text around how it's an example to see how much I've been tweeting. And then we have the graph ID just as a Twitter example. And we have all of that. And so from here too, we want to just tie it together with a if name equals main. And then from here, app run server, and then debug, especially because this is a live demo, equals true. And now we're ready to run our app.py. I always get so nervous around this part because it's always like the moment of truth. So Python, it might be Python 3 for you, but for me, I've set some aliases. So, and then from here, app.py. Oh, cool. So I do have a positional argument because I did not set a y-axis, which is always fun, on line 47. Cool. All right, so now I can kind of take a look at what's happening. So sorry, I was like stopping and looking at my error. Always what happens, especially with that. So we could see that, but that we're going to want to be a y. Like when you can kind of like tell what the errors are. Cool. Line 40. Cool. So I actually might just because there are some issues, I want to make sure that we get to the S. I'm just going to cut and paste, and I'll link to the tutorial as well, and we could kind of just go through one by one. But as what sometimes happens with live coded demos, doesn't always go entirely as planned, but always ready for that sort of thing. So from here, I'm just going to cut and paste that. And again, just kind of to do a little bit of an overview, we're going to want to import everything we need. We have our app ready. We connect to the server, do our search URL and our query params, set the bearer token, add some extra headers, connect to the endpoint. And then from there, we can kind of put in our JSON response, send everything to a data frame, and then do some just kind of final customization from there. And I'll show you the full version of the working code and where to find it as well at the end of the talk. Cool, so it is running, which is exciting. So from here, now we can actually take a look inside of our browser. So from here, let's just run that here. We could kind of see how often I've been tweeting, which is really cool. And so, yeah, we have that up and running. So that's a little bit about the demo. Let's actually go back to the slide deck that we were working off of. And thanks to everybody for bearing with my live code demo. So I actually have this deployed using Heroku and the Heroku scheduler to set the timing for every 10 minutes so that my site updates regularly. You can always adjust the timing to be more than that or less than that. At one point I had it be just daily, but I don't know, I wanted it to show a little bit more. And then also to ensure that I didn't commit my bearer token directly, I set the environment variable as a config var as well. So that's how this is deployed. There's also other options for deployment as well, but I thought Heroku was the easiest. And then I actually have this up and running on Heroku, so we can actually check that out as well. And so we can actually see here, this is what's running locally, which is an example using Dash and the Twitter API to see how much I've been tweeting this week. And you can actually see the same graph, and everything should look similar depending on like the timing of everything. I also really enjoyed working with the Heroku scheduler. It was my first time working with the Heroku scheduler in such a way. And I actually really enjoyed like being able to like set the timing that way. And it was, as somebody who's run lots of like demos around timing, I found the Heroku scheduler a little bit easier to work with than other similar schedulers in the past. So yeah, you can kind of see from here just how often I've been tweeting. And the colors are, this is the color that we set for the line, and it's here. And then you can kind of see everything here as well. And then this is the tweet count of our data frame. And here is the start as well. So, and also there are some options as well that you can like download the plot as a PNG. You could zoom in a little bit more. You could pan it, zoom in and out, which is kind of cool. And then you can do some auto scaling, and then like it lets you know that it was produced with Plotly, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's sort of the deployed version, and it's very similar to what we currently have as well. Also, the endpoint that we worked with was the recent counts endpoint. So you could kind of take a look at the documentation to learn a little bit more about it. There's a run and Postman button, so you can actually do the same thing that I did at the beginning of the presentation to kind of do that on your own as well. So you have all the information you need about how to connect to the endpoint and how to get it up and running, and some sample curl requests. We also have some additional sample code on the Twitter dev GitHub that can help you get started as well too. And if you want to see the full version of the code, speaking of the Twitter dev GitHub, it is github.com/twitterdev, and then getting started with Dash, with the dashes in between. And that's where you can kind of find that as well. So there's some next steps. This talk was definitely meant to be a start. You may want to customize your query further to see how much you tweet about a specific topic. If I wanted to maybe like look for tweets about basketball or like the Boston Celtics or something like that, I can actually, do that. I can actually customize my query more to not have retweets, to tweet from specific people, to talk about specific hashtags. Like there are different things that I can do to kind of make my query more my own. And we have some query builder guides inside of our documentation that have really helped me in this process as well. You also might want to know like how many times a particular term has been posted throughout the week. You might want to also maybe not use that endpoint. You might want to, like, for example, you might want to add data visualization to a different Twitter API endpoint, or even something that's like not even related to the Twitter API. Like you might want to search for themes around what types of tweets you like. And that's something that you can do as well with like a similar code sample. So that's something to kind of like keep in mind. Also, one of the things that I think is like really notable about this is that it didn't take me much time to like write this code. I was able to get started really quickly. I was able to work with like the Dash documentation and the Twitter API documentation and like get something up and running in less than 15 minutes, which was really cool. And like, that was something that like it used to take me so long to make websites out of data visualizations and make internet happen. And now it's just become so much easier. And I think that's one of the things that really like inspired me to want to give this talk here, is about like how easy it's become to kind of make dashboards. And like, this is sort of like the basic start of what you would need to kind of build upon a broader dashboard about terms or things like that. So this is something I think is really exciting, and I think there's a lot of potential and opportunity. And if you're building something similar, I want to see that from you as well. And this talk was based on a tutorial. If you go to t.co/dash getting started and make sure that the capitalization is exactly like that. Again, that's t.co/dash getting started. You can see step by step every single code block, and it will walk you through that. There's also a similar version up on dev.to as well. And yeah, that's a little bit about like how to get started on this, and it walks you through how I built this entire code sample. And again, if you want to talk about dashboards, if you want to talk about data and Python web, anything like that, or if this tutorial or talk inspires you to create anything, please let me know at Jessica Garson on Twitter. My DMs are open. Also, if you're building something with the Twitter API and you just want to talk about it, I'm here for that. So, or if you have advice and suggestions, let me know. Or if you run into any problems along the way, please let me know. Also, you can let my team know. We have a Twitter handle at TwitterDev. Also, if you run any problems along the way, we have the Twitter community forums. And so that's twittercommunity.com. I'm pretty active there, so you'll get to meet me probably, or one of my other coworkers. And that's a great place to go if you have any questions about the Twitter API as well. And thank you so much. Being part of this today was an honor, and really appreciate that.